Hey everybody, it's Pastor Rob with today's Bible break message, the civically engaged Christian. Now you may say right off the bat, well, Pastor, I don't know if Christians have any place in politics. Well, you better believe they do. I want you to, and I encourage you to go back and look at the founding documents and the founding monuments and those things that are all around Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia and those areas. And you will find inscribed in stone and brass and marble and pillar and ink and paper and also oil on canvas, you will find testimony of the faith and faithfulness of the men and women who were very involved in the political founding and running of our country. My friends, don't let anyone erase your history, the fact that Christians are both citizens of heaven spiritually, but they're citizens of their country physically, and that Christians ought to be very, very, very engaged citizens. We ought to be the very best citizens of our country. Now, in 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 1 and 2, the Apostle Paul, he's an apostle, he's writing to Timothy, who's a pastor, and he's informing this pastor of how he ought to live, but also to pass along to his people how they ought to live as well as Christians. He says this, I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men. Now notice in this verse 2, for kings, for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. Did you catch that? The Apostle Paul said, Timothy, I want you to be aware of and engaged in with your political or the leadership of your country. Now, I want to give you just a few quick thoughts on this. Number one, we ought to be aware Christians. Paul said, you better pray for those that are kings and those that all that are in authority. You better know their name and what office they hold and how they lean and how they govern. If we're going to be engaged with them or to pray for them, we need to know who they are. Number one, we need to be aware. Do you know who all of your elected officials are? Are you aware of them by name and by their office so you can pray for them? Now, not only should we should be an aware Christian, but number two, we ought to be a prayerful Christian. A prayerful Christian. My friend, the greatest thing you can do for your president, your vice president, your senator, your congressman, your mayor, your representative, your governor, is to be a praying Christian. You know what the problem is, Christian? We don't believe God. We don't believe that what the Bible says, that the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord, and that God can guide even the most obstinate, stubborn, ungodly, and uncooperative person. My friends, God is bigger than any elected official. The problem is we as Christians, we act like atheists, and the fact that we think we got to take matters into our own hands. Father, you see that craziness going on all over our country today. And why is it that people are doing the things they're doing? They don't think that God works in any way. My friends, the greatest thing you can do is pray for and pray with and pray about your elected officials, your elected and appointed officials. Number three, not only an aware Christian, not only a prayerful Christian, but number three, a thankful Christian. He says supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and all that are in authority. We ought to be thankful, all right? Now, there's a place in this society for civil and civic discourse. My friend, you and I may disagree on politics and policy, but there should be no place for acrimony, for name calling, for all of this burning things down and absolute destruction. We ought to have a good disposition and a thankful disposition. Hey, as you approach your elected leadership, may I say you ought to do so with a thankful attitude and disposition. Number four, not only aware, not only prayerful, not only thankful, but number four, engaged. An engaged civic Christian. Now, not only should you be aware of who your leadership is, but your leadership, especially at the local and state level, ought to be very aware of who you are. Now, this is something I believe in and something I practice. My mayor knows who I am, knows me by name. My ward councilman knows who I am. My state representative knows who I am. My governor knows who I am. Now, they may not care who I am, but they've heard from me. They've gotten a letter from me. They've gotten several emails from me. I've reached out. I've contacted them, especially at the local level, and interacted them with quite a bit. I am an engaged citizen. Let me make a statement here. Listen, in politics and policy, the engaged and those who are involved, their will, and especially the vocally engaged, will always bear rule over those who are disengaged and the complacent. My friends, you know what's going on in our country today? The very engaged are oppressing their will upon the the silent majority or complacent majority in America. I found out just recently that only 25% of the electorate in our city voted the last election cycle. And so 25% of Holland decided for a 100% of Holland. Now, let me make a statement. I'm going to wrap this up. Every Christian needs to be aware of the upcoming election. Every Christian needs to be aware of upcoming policies, politics, and what is being voted on. And every Christian ought to be engaged. The outcome of the upcoming election, both local and state and national, is directly dependent upon the engagement and the involvement of Christians in America. May I say, Christians in America, you and I hold in our hands the future of our country. How much we get involved at the local, state, and national level will depend and will influence which way our country goes. My friend, I hope this has been a help to you today. Till we meet again, let's keep looking unto Jesus.